Hi, everyone. Welcome to another podcast of Living Life at Life U. This is your host, Dr. Veronica Garcia, and today we are joined by a very special guest, very special colleague, and very dear to my heart for other reasons that you might or might not know if you follow me on social media. But today we're joined by Dr. Dom Fetterly. Hi, Dr. Dom. How you doing today?
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for agreeing to do this with me. I know that, sometimes I overtext you, and thank you for always responding.
Of course. Always.
And talk to us a little bit about your role. What is your role within this institution?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the director at NeuroLIFE Institute at Life University. With that, at NeuroLIFE, what we aim to do, so we're a clinic that sees complex neurological patients within the realm of functional neurology. So again, I'm a chiropractor, of course. Within chiropractic, I'm a specialist within functional neurology. Mm-hmm. So what that means, we look at things from a lens of brain health, whether that's receptor-based, or how do we boost the brain to have the best response possible? Often we get patients that have seen multiple doctors and very few answers. And of course, that's the case with a lot of chiropractors. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where chiropractors really shine, is really in a realm of the difference between a pathology, where we have an image, we may have an x-ray, we may have an MRI, a CT, where we see something and we can correlate a symptom. Well, a lot of the cases that we see don't always go as smoothly. We may have to explain the physiology. So as chiropractors, I think that's our bread and butter. We look at physiology, we measure it, we observe it carefully, and we make changes. So I like to think that's what I do at NeuroLIFE, is we make changes in physiology and brain health. And really, that's where we shine, I would say.
I love that. I love that. And I love that as experience as a patient, but I love it also as experience as a colleague. And I want to ask you, because we were in school at the same time, sort of kind of around the same years, what inspired you to do applied clinical neuroscience?
Absolutely. So my personal experience with concussion and head injury, I've had multiple concussions from the age of 13 on, and really been told through a medical community, rest it off, sit in a dark room, it'll get better on its own. And, realizing that's not quite the case, and actually considered, so sorry for the youth out there that haven't read the recent literature, this is educational in a way that that's actually considered a form of almost negligence in a way. We need to be able to rehab the brain, even if it's in a gentle way initially, and then working up to dose responses to where we can handle more. Again, a lot of times injured brains perceive threat more often. And then from there, really, we should be perceiving therapy all the time, but a threatening environment keeps us from flourishing. So for me, my brain was not flourishing. It was basically going through levels of fatigue and forgetfulness at an age that doesn't really make sense.
Right.
I would be driving on the middle of the road, excited to get your driver's license, right? Well, I didn't know where I was, so I had to pull over and basically take inventory of how am I wearing what I'm wearing, how long I've been awake, did I eat breakfast, where am I? Medical doctors to say, it'll rest it off, sit in a dark room. So learning more about my brain and really wanting to investigate that and learning more and more led me to chiropractic, led me to functional neurology. And as I got here at Life University, actually I graduated from Life University with you, of course. And with that, I got to experience NeuroLIFE Institute as a student as well, and shadowing. And as I spent time in there and learning more and taking all these courses, really nerdy courses that are really great, but with that, we get to learn more about the brain from a self-care point. And then eventually that just expands and expands and expands to the point where we can see the application in a lot of other people. And I think that's really, again, where it started for me and the fire began was my own injury, eventually to the point where I can look around and say, oh my gosh, if I had what I think this offers at the time when I was going through, I could have saved years off of struggle and discomfort and all these years of no answers, essentially.
That's imperative, and that's beautiful. And that's something that really allows people to have a conversation around it, because we all, within practice, at some point, you will have a patient that says, oh, I had a concussion, however long ago. And then we don't make those connections when we have a concussion with whatever the symptoms, signs, the else that comes afterwards. And it's really beautiful to have a place within the institution that allows them to, hone in into, this might be connected. And you mentioned something about at the beginning being very gentle with the brain, but then afterwards kind of hyping things up and and experiencing new therapies, new technologies, what are some of those state-of-the-art technologies and equipment that we have at NeuroLIFE Institute?
Absolutely. So you think about the different receptors, right? And how I often described applied clinical neuroscience is receptor-based therapy. So, you think about our senses that we have: sight, smell, sound, touch, taste. But also there's what a lot of people consider is even the sixth sense, not like the scary movie that's suspenseful. Don't want to ruin the ending for you guys, but vestibular system. So we look at all these different senses to say, what's our best window in to help the brain flourish? And different people experiencing different pieces. If it was a one size fits all for each brain, gosh, brain health would be so easy and we would have the answer to health, right? But each brain is individual. Sometimes people go predisposed and don't necessarily have what we call cognitive reserve going into some injuries, and they might be depleted a little quicker in some areas, whether it's one of those 5 or 6 senses. So some of the equipment that we use, things like I like to say it as, again, like a movie reference, right? It's like Born Identity, our most dangerous weapon. No, it's our most powerful weapon is our hands. One of them being the ability to adjust, of course. And then from there, what we'll use is light, sound, touch, taste, smell. One of the things that we do, and a lot of people get a kick out of it, is a big spinning chair. The nerdy version is a OVARD, off vertical axis rotation device, aka a gyrostim. So it's really a fancy spinning chair. And what we do is we may tilt people through space to retrain our balance centers as well as our eyes in response to tilt and rotation. Our brain perceives so much, even when we don't realize it. So really, how can we be specific with those receptors to train the eyes, to train these balance centers so our body recognizes how to respond to my environment better? Right. Another really cool piece that we have is even a visual set. So they're super fancy goggles called a VNG, the video nystagmography. And really what it has is these little cameras in there. And what we're watching are the eyes on a screen. And it sounds kind of boring at first, but from an observation standpoint, incredible. We get to see these minute little changes in eye movement and function from a diagnostic perspective of what eye movement correlates to what part of the brain and how do we rehab that. Something as simple as looking left could be perceived as a threat for some people. And we can measure that and see it and show people, and they can visibly see, oh, my eyes can't go to the left easily, slow or fast. And then when we make our improvements, we can say, okay, let's see a pre and a post and find how your body perceives your environment even better.
And that's something that I think sets us apart as we practice neurology. That's something that in practice, I always love to explain to patients. I always tell, you know how we say that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they really are, but taking a step further, for us, the eyes are truly the windows to the brain. So it's not about just how, if you are able to look to the left or if you are able to look to your right, but how well can you do it? And those goggles definitely do play a big part in understanding, not just from the clinical perspective, but from the perspective of the patient. Okay, my eyes can look to their left. But like you said, how well can they look to the left? Are they following the target? Are they going over? And then correlating that to the brain. I freaking love neurology. I think it's one of the coolest things.
But I agree. It's amazing. And when people hear these explanations of something like, for example, early development or late degeneration, it spans across the whole spectrum as well as performance enhancement. So if we look at a child, for instance, and we say, okay, your child may be struggling in school, but maybe it's not something that's been told before. Maybe there's alternative options. Maybe the eyes aren't able to focus on something because they aren't able to hold energy in a certain position for long enough. And then what that looks like is jumping around a page and misreading. So people sometimes diagnosed with some things like a dyslexia or an ADHD, we see them in there and we say, well, look at what your eyes are doing. And maybe if we improve function of your eyes and improve brain function, that's something that we can see an improvement in. Often that is the case. So it gets to be a lot of fun when you take things that sometimes are described as a diagnosis and even a label. We break it down into the small components of the physiology. And we look at how do we improve the physiology to the point where maybe the diagnosis was just the name and we're able to actually work our way through that. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that it definitely allows, like you said, for the chiropractic students to have a different understanding that goes a little bit beyond what we see a lot of times in social media, snap, crackle, and pop, right? In a beautiful way, I promise you, no offense.
Right.
But it allows them for the students and for the prospective students, but for the patients to have a different understanding about their own bodies, as well as their ability to bring self-awareness and healing for the others.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that current students can reach you, can get in touch with you? Is NeuroLIFE open for the community? How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So NeuroLIFE is a part of Life University. So I love having students shadow. I love other doctors shadow. We actually had a couple doctors in this week shadowing some patients that we had, because we have patients come from all over the world, all over the country, where we may have them stay for a period of time and treat them multiple times a day. So students that are available, come on down, introduce yourself. Our front desk is super friendly and receptive, and we'd be more than happy to have you. Other doctors, same invitation applies. If you give us a little bit of a heads up, we can actually arrange some things for you to make it a little bit of a better experience. But we love having other doctors, other students in our office, so that we can actually promote the profession and advance the profession, because we do some really interesting things in the office, I think, especially compared to some other offices. So people look at what we do, like, that's really weird. And it's like, well, if some of the things that, we haven't gotten the improvements in that we're looking to make in research and some clinical practice, maybe we should do some weird things to apply it. And then also in conjunction with our research department at Life University, our PhD researcher, Dr. Stephanie Sullivan, amazing. She's great. The fact that we're able to work with somebody like that and it help to advance this profession and come up with these really cool ideas and work together, we get to be in conjunction with cutting edge resources as well as promoting these resources. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your personality and your openness and your vulnerability. And I thank you as a friend for everything that you've always done for me. And I thank you as a colleague for always choosing to go a step further within the profession and looking to expand it. And I also thank you as a patient, as a student and as a patient, right? So thank you for being here today. Please, 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 if you haven't followed NeuroLIFE Institute on social media, make sure that you do so. Make sure that you reach out to ask any questions. And I hope that you guys enjoy today's episode. Leave us a review. Tell us who else you want to hear from. And I hope to see you during your next episode. Thank you, Dr. Dom.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.